Alright, so welcome to the study session number 6. Welcome to study session number 6, episode 6, part 6. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So, welcome everyone to study session 6, where I try to summarize everything that I've learned today. So, today was a good day in terms of learning. Like, I put in somewhere around 2 hours, roughly 2 hours into studying, which is again not very good. Like, it's pretty shitty. It's not like as as it's not as enough. Like, it's not what I was aiming for. I was aiming for something more, considering that I'm sitting home all day long and I'm lazy as fuck. But anyways, that was better than the previous episode last time. So without any further delay, I'll go through what I learned today. So today we started studying from forearm and hand. All right, so this is a really big fucking chapter. So it's one of the biggest chapter in the upper limb. So we started from here, and we went, and we completed all this up till the clinical muscles of the hand. So in the next session I will start from the clinical muscles of the hand. So we completed all this much, and like, there are a lot of details included in all this. Anatomy is like a very detailed subject, as you might know already. So let's see what we studied. So we studied, basically we started from the muscles in the front of the forearm. So basically in this chapter, the forearm, this is your transverse section of your forearm. Your forearm is, this is your radius, this is your ulna, and there is a there is something called I forgot the fucking name, but there is something called interosseous membrane. I'm not getting the name right, but there is a membrane, transverse membrane, that divides the forearm into the front or the anterior part, and the back or the posterior part. So we only studied about we like only covered the front, or the like the and the this part, the front, the anterior part of the forearm. So uh, because of that, we'll talk about muscles in front of the forearm. So these are the muscles in front of the forearm. There are superficial muscles and deep muscles. So these are the superficial muscles. We will talk about deep muscles as well in a minute. So the superficial muscles are, pronator teres, flexor carpi ulnaris, palmaris longus, flexor carpi radialis, flexor digitorum superficialis. Complicated name, I'm messing up the pronunciations, I believe. But these are the muscles, and as the name suggests, like flexor carpi radialis, since it's called radialis, it is towards the radial end or towards the lateral end. So this is the radial, you know radial muscle, and this is the ulna. So this is the radial, forgot the bone's name. So this is radius, and this is ulna. So since it is called flexor carpi radialis, it is closer to the radius. So it goes from here to here. So this is flexor carpi ulnaris, and it is closer to the radius. And similarly, since this is called flexor carpi ulnaris, uh, it goes from here, and it is closer to, yeah, you guessed it, ulna. So this is ulna, like, behind this muscle, that's ulna. This is radius, and this bone is radius, this bone is ulna. And there are other muscles as well, pronator teres, and as you can see, the way that go, like, they originate here, and it ends at the shaft of the radius. So one thing is, like, you might know, is that uh, this is called common flexor origin. So like all of these flexor muscles, so the muscles that have flexor in front of them originate from this medial epicondyle of the humerus, which is the bone of your arm. So medial epicondyle at the elbow joint. So all of these have a common origin, and they are called flexor because they help to flex the forearm and also your fingers as well. So like and this is called pronator because this muscle helps to pronate your arm, supinate and pronate, like these are the movements of your arm. So this one particular helps to pronate your arm. There is a muscle somewhere here as well. It's not shown because this is not relevant to the diagram, but it is called supinator. So if you really want to study anatomy, like everything is in the name. So it is pronator teres, helps to pronate, and the functions of these are like flexor, it helps to flex the arm and your fingers as well, particular fingers and particular sections of your arm. So this is how they go, and they originate here, most of them, and they terminate somewhere here in a place called flexor reticulum, which we'll come to later on. So these are the muscles in front of the your forearm. A lot of complicated stuff, like this is not even touching the surface. We have to look into each muscle separately. And talking about looking into each muscle, this is a very important diagram. This diagram like basically list, like summarizes everything that is important about these muscles. Like the origin is important, where they originate and where they end. Insertion is important. So these muscles, like this is a really important diagram, you need to know this. And also the nerve supply and actions. So actions, as I mentioned, pronator teres, the name is it itself says pronator. So pronation of the forearm, pronation and supination. There are two types of muscle movement which I cannot show here because it's difficult to show with a mouse and drawing. But you can google it, what is pronation and supination. Those are two types of muscle, like arm movements out of many. And flexor carpi radialis, as the name says, flexor, here also flexor. It flexes the wrist joint, it flexes the hand and the wrist joint. So these muscles help to flex. And the nerve supply, these are supplied by the median nerve, some are supplied by the ulnar nerve. These are important things. Moving on to the deep muscles. Now I wish I had another diagram like this, showing the deep muscles. Like the book that I studied is a new edition. It's a newer edition, and it had a really good diagram showing the deep muscles. But since I only have the PDF of the older edition, it does not have any diagram showing the deep muscles. So sorry, I don't have the diagrams showing deep muscles. uh, but we do have the table. So this is the table for deep muscles. So the muscles are like divided into two, like as I said, like superficial muscles. These are the superficial muscles, pronator teres, all these are superficial muscles. And these are the deep muscle: flexor digitorum profundus, flexor pollicis longus. These names are really complicated. I do know what they mean, what they do, but pronunciating. See, I'm struggling already. Them is like a pain in the ass, but you need to get them right for your, vocal exams, vivas. And as similar, like nerve supply, what they do, where they insert, where they originate. All of these things are important. Now, you know this is also one of those one of this is a really good diagram showing the muscles, like the muscles and the nerves and the blood vessels as well. This is your brachial artery, and it divides into two parts: radial and ulnar artery in the cuboidal fossa, and this is your ulnar nerve, I believe, and this is your radial nerve. And like this is a really good diagram. I really like this diagram. It showed the relationships between the nerves, blood vessels, and the muscles surrounding them. So this is a really good diagram. I really like this diagram. Very good diagram. thumbs up for this one. So, and this is also another important diagram. So this diagram particularly shows, the a transfer section of the forearm. So this shows the transfer section of the forearm. So you can learn, like you can look at diagrams like these are the lateral, like side views of the side and front views of the muscles. But when you look at the transfer sections are always important because they give you, help you to, like they help you to make a three-dimensional image of the muscles and where the arteries and nerves are. So this is the transfer section. These are always important, like really interesting diagram. And as I firstly like mentioned at the beginning, there is a thing that divides the forearm into superior, like front and back, or anterior or posterior part. This is the thing. And it is called, I missed in wait there, it is called enterosus membrane. So here it is. So it is called fuck it is called enterosis membrane. I don't know how to pronounce it. So this is the membrane that divides, the forearm into two parts, and we're only discussing about the front, this part only. We're not discussing about the part that is below, only this part. At the this part of the chapter, we're only discussing about muscles and arteries present in this part of the chapter. So this and there are lots of vessels, and there are other membranes as well. Like you can see this green stuff that divide in the upper part into further different sections, and there are muscles in each section, and there are blood vessels. As you can see, these are blood vessels and nerves fitting into different parts of the section. So this is also a really interesting and important diagram. So transfer section, remember that, like transfer sections are always important, like they give you a really good idea of how things are arranged in the body. Now then we discussed, like we learned something about, actually, I always say we, but that's a good thing, I guess, but it's actually I who learned it. Kind of sounds selfish, right? But yeah, I learned about brucei as well. So brucei are like brusa singular when you pronounce it singular. So brusa are like cushions. So the brusa are like basically cushions for your body. So these are the cushions. So there are different types of cushions in your hand, palm. One is called ulnar brusa, which is towards your ulnar bone, and one is called radial brusa because it is towards the direction of the radial bone. And there are also separate digital synovial sheaths as well, which also act like cushions for your bones and your blood vessels, protect your blood vessels, and they are basically cushions in your body. So we also discuss about where are these, what are their functions. And yeah, basically we also learned a lot about, like a little bit about brucei as well. Brucei as in plural, you get the point. And then we also discussed a lot, we learned a lot about nerves and blood vessels. So nerves and blood vessels always, a huge portion of anatomy, uh, especially, like what is important in like nerves and blood vessels is where do they origin, like what is their like path that they take, like uh, like like radial nerve origins, not origins, but in terms of while we are looking at only your forearm, it starts at here on the radial side, or the lateral side it goes there, and it divides into two branches, deep branch and a superficial branch. The deep branch goes further inside your arm, deeper into your arm, whereas superficial branch remains superficial. And relationship between like these vessels, like the radial nerve is closely related to the radial artery. uh, you know this is your radial nerve and this is your radial artery. and this is your ulnar artery, and this is your ulnar nerve, and where do they go, a lot of complicated stuff. So we also learned about radial nerve, arteries, blood vessels of the forearm. So very interesting things here as well. And talking about the nerves only, this is a good diagram showing your median nerves. So median nerve is basically, there are like three major nerves, like radial nerve, ulnar nerve, and median nerve. Radial nerve is like towards, like radian and median nerves are towards the opposite sides of your body, and radian and ulnar are like the opposite sides, whereas median nerve as is at the, as you can see, the middle of the body. And you have to learn about where does it originate. It originates at your armpit, at your at the brachial plexus, which I've covered in my previous episodes, and it goes down, and it like goes through the armpit, like it goes through your arm, and it gives so many branches here, branches here, branches here, to these muscles, connecting branches, and it goes to your hand, and like supplies each finger of your body, except for your little finger, like lots of details, like what are the branches it supplies, what are the muscles it supplies, lots of things here as well. So we also learned about the median nerve. And then we also learned about palmar aponeurosis. Like this is a long video because like I learned a lot of things today, so just to cover everything. So palmar aponeurosis, so this is a part, this palmar aponeurosis is basically a thing like this triangular thing, this green thing here, and this is like a part of, if we can see or not, like here. So this is like a part of, shit, this is like a part of like one of these muscles, this palmaris longus muscle. So this is like a part of this palmaris longus muscle. So this palmaris longus muscle goes from here, it goes from here, this palmaris longus muscle, and it terminates as this thing, palmar aponeurosis. So this palmar aponeurosis, which we will discuss now, is like a part of this palmaris longus muscle, and it originates at the here, common flexor origin. So lots of relation between, like lots of things are related in anatomy, like while discussing each different part. So going talking specifically about palmar aponeurosis, it's also like a protective sheath in your palm, and it helps it is attached to your skin of your palm, and it fixes your skin of your palm so that you can grab things properly, and your skin is not loosey goosey, and so that the skin is like, your palm is like really strong, like it does not move around. Your skin of your palm is like really strong or really tough, so that you can grab things, and it is not damaged easily. So palmar aponeurosis is the thing that helps doing that. And what are the structures related to the aponeurosis, what are the fingers that the aponeurosis extends to, like this thing only is only present in your forefingers, it is not present in your thumb, so like details like that. And also this is again another transverse section. So yeah, transverse section is the important thing in anatomy. Like this diagram makes it a whole lot easier to understand everything. Like if I only had only this diagram, then it would be a lot difficult, but this diagram, transverse section, is always like really good. Transfer section diagrams are really, I appreciate these diagrams really much, like a lot. So this is the transfer section of your hand. So basically somewhere here. So this is the transfer section of this part, basically. Like cut your hand from this part and view it. So what do we see in the transfer section? A lot of details which I will not go through because it will take too much time, but like these are the bones, these are the muscles, this is the aponeurosis, this is this thing, and this is like this green thing. This is this green thing which is shown, which is looks like this in the transverse section, and this as like these are the muscles and these are the blood vessels and nerves going to the transverse things, like lots of details. And also we also discussed about fiber flexor sheaths. So these are like, you know, these are basically like blankets that cover your finger bones, or phalanges, as we like to call them in anatomical terms. So these are like, this fiber flexor sheath is basically a sheath or covering that covers and protects your, finger bones, phalanges. It covers them like this. And like inside this covering there are like extension of your muscles, like these muscles, like the muscle, like some of these muscles which extend down to your fingers. So some of these muscles even go as far as to your fingers. And while like muscles are like terminating, they change into ligaments. And it's like under this sheath, like there are ligaments of these muscles, such as, ligamentor flexural digitorum superficially. This is a muscle that we discussed here in your arm section, forearm section. So like this helps protects the ligaments of these muscles. So that's pretty much it. And we also, just to finish it up, we also talked about a clinical term called a clinical disease or condition called, I don't even know, I will not even try out to pronounce, I won't even try out to pronounce this. I just don't have any clue. Dupuytrentis contracture. I don't know, but I do know what it means though. So this is basically a condition where, this part. So this part of your, something called palmar, like palmar reticulum, or some part like this part of your body is basically inflamed, which I guess, when this part is inflamed, then vessels, nerves, and like blood vessels and nerves passing through this part get, compressed. And like when these nerves are damaged or compressed, then muscles supplying your fingers will not work. So what happens is like this is your hand, right? Fuck, this is horrible drawing. So this is, say this is your hand. So this is your hand. So during like in this disease or condition, like there is a thing here, uh, called, I forgot the name. There is a thing here, uh, called, I don't remember the name, but there is something here like a reason here, and this region gets inflamed. So the nerve supplying like your fingers get damaged. And since like due to this inflammation, nerve supplying some of your fingers get damaged. Some of your fingers, particularly like the most common damaged finger is your ring finger. Your ring finger is flexed. So like all your fingers are normal, but your ring finger is like bent. So these are all your fingers, but your ring finger is like this. So your ring finger will be permanently like this, which is not a good thing, I suppose. Of course it's not a good thing, but like basically this happen, like your ring fingers get fucked up in this condition. So that's pretty much it. So yeah, it's a long, like we studied a lot of things today. So we studied about muscles of your hand, details of these muscles, deep muscles, superficial muscles, veins, blood vessels, transverse sections, and nerves of your forearm, and something called palmar aponeurosis, transverse section again, and finishing off with the fiber sheet. So you know anatomy is a complicated fucking subject, and I kind of enjoy it, to be honest. Like I kind of like it that it's complicated. So yeah, we studied a lot. So that's pretty much it for today. Hope you learned something. though there is so much more to learn. Alright, bye.